In this video, we're going to be talking about troublesome guitar chords. Some of these have been submitted from members of my team, and there are even chords that I, as a novice guitar player myself, have struggled with over the years. We're welcoming back Adam Wright, who is the music director at Cahaba Park Church, just outside Birmingham. Adam, I'm just going to dive right in. One of the chords that was requested that you show us is the B7 chord, commonly used in the key of E major.
Yeah.
What's the good way to learn how to get to that quickly? What does the shape look like? Talk about that.
That's a great question. B7, let's talk about that shape first. So the way I would play it in kind of the more traditional sense, you wouldn't play your E strings. You do second fret, first fret, second fret, open, and then second. So it kind of sounds like the beginning of Happy Birthday. And so B7 is connected. It's in the key of E. So that's actually a really good way to practice switching between and getting to B7. Go to E, which would be open E string, second, first, open. So that's your E chord. And then the way that you're going to shift to B7, this is going to come up one, this is going to go down one, and you're going to drop your pinky right there. So E, and then there's B7. And I'd say this is something you could do even without your right hand, is you're just kind of holding your instrument, just kind of shift it back and forth to those chords. A is also something that you could throw into the mix too. If you want to throw that in there, that's kind of a chord that's also in that family, but E, A, and then B7. Another way you could do it, if you're a bar chord fan, I'm not really so much of a bar chord fan, but you can come up here to the 7th fret. That's a B chord, not a B7. To do a B7, actually, I guess you would just do that. Far less comfortable way to play it, in my opinion, but that would be 7th fret, 9th fret, 7th fret, 8th fret, 7th, 7. So 7, 9, 8, 7, 7, 9, 7, 8, 7, 7. Right there for B7.
That's not your phone number, right?
That is not my phone number. Please don't try to call it.
Just clarifying that. Well, sometimes we also see B sus, and other times we see B. Mm-hmm. So what is your preference there? Does it really matter?
Yeah.
What would you do there?
B sus, I'm with you, and I agree. I feel like most of the songs that in modern songs are using this kind of B sus chord. And the sus basically just means you are suspending. So if a chord is built 1, 3, 5, you're basically, instead of the 3, you're playing the 4. 1, 4, 5. So that's what we're doing here. This kind of wants to go down to this. It wants to lead back down to the 3rd, but that's what a sus chord is. And so it's camping out on the 4 instead of the 3. But this is how I'd play that. So you wouldn't play that E string. You'd have 2, 4, 4, open, and then be your B sus. If you wanted to close it, you could do this, which I don't play that often. Again, doesn't this look comfortable? How do you at home? I wouldn't do it that way. I'd probably go back up here where we were working with our B7 from before and just kind of bar the whole thing and do that. What I really would probably do is just use a capo. And so I would say for you guitar players at home, rather than mastering all of these bar chords, really get comfortable with learning how a capo can shift a key to make it way easier for you to play. In other words, if a song's in the key of B, right, and you're having to play B, E, and F sharp, it's just a lot of moving around, right? Well, get your capo out. We're going to capo. So G, this is a little chord theory, but G, a whole step up from G is A, a whole step up from A is B. So we're going to move up to the 4th fret, and we're going to play a G chord. And that is the same as a B, right? It sounds the same as a B. So instead of having to jump all the way around and use all these big bar chords, you've got G to C to D. And those are basically the same chords I just played in a much, much easier way. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So.
Every now and then, I've seen this especially come up during like the Advent and Christmas season, where you're wanting to play, tunes out of the hymnals such as like "Joy of the World" or "Angels We Have Heard on High," "Hark the Herald Angels Sing," and in order to try and stay as true as you can to the hymnal, a bar chord eventually is just going to have to sneak in there. So if if there's people out there that are wanting to just get better at that, especially getting the right pressure down so the strings aren't buzzing, how would you teach people just to strengthen their fingers to be able to do that? Let's take, for instance, like F sharp 7. That's one I've seen show up a lot.
Okay. So there again, I think it's a lot of this index finger, and I'd say think about your thumb placement as well. So on the back of the neck, I'm putting my thumb right here. So basically, if it's up here or something like that, that's going to be problematic. There's not as much, you don't have as much pressure to give it. So I would say make sure your thumb is on the back of the neck, and then basically just kind of practice. And it's going to be, especially if you're a beginner guitar player, it's going to be painful. So just prepare yourself. But just kind of practice holding that down without any of the other fingers at first, and making sure you have nice, good, clean notes all the way down. And then when you feel like you've got to you can do it up the neck. Just kind of do this kind of deal, you know? And then add your other fingers in, I would say, after that. But yeah, I think the thing about bar chords, I think, is just getting the right amount of pressure. And that's what frustrates a lot of the students I've taught over the years, is not being able to get that, like the crisp sound out of the strings. So that's probably what I'd say to do there, is just kind of really emphasize, on the bar chord specifically, emphasize the pressure between your thumb and your index finger, and making sure that's really intact.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to ask you about 3 more. Let's go ahead and get to the one that everyone's probably thinking of, the dreaded F chord.
Oh, the F chord.
I've hardly ever played with a guitar player that preferred the traditional shape. Will you show everybody what the traditional shape of that looks like?
So yeah, I mean, there's like the shortcut version, which would be like this. You could also make it a bar, like we've been doing. And again, these are ones that I really don't use much. But I in college learned this technique where you can wrap your thumb around the neck and basically fret a note with your thumb. And so the way I play F a lot of times, it actually ends up being more of like an F major 7 chord. But and if you don't want it to have that 7 vibe, you can leave the top, that E string off. But this also gives you. So let me break down what I'm doing. So this is, the thumb is doing the 1st fret, and then I've got my middle finger on 3, pinky on 3. The middle finger is going to, it can kind of serve as kind of a hammer-on decorative decorative kind of function there. And then the index finger, that was lovely. And then the X finger is going to play that 1st fret. So a lot of times I'll use that shape. Another way I could play F would be this. I do like this. I'll show this to you. So if you're in the key of C, I will use this shape a lot. So basically, if you camp out your index finger on the 1st fret of the B string and your pinky finger on the 3rd fret of the E string, then you've got, in the key of C, your major chords are going to be C, F, G, and you're going to have an A minor. We'll say there's going to be a 6. So you can leave these 2 fingers there the whole time. So you got your C there, and I'm basically muting, with this ring finger, I'm muting the string that's right underneath whichever one I'm pushing down. So for C, I'm muting the D string, and then for F, I'm muting the G string, and then G, I'm muting the A string with this ring finger. And then A minor, I'm not really muting anything. But what that might sound like, and again, I'm not moving these at all. So and it kind of gives it this nice, like, high open sound to it. But that's one that I'd say you could practice that. And again, use your capo. If you're playing a song that's in the key of D major, capo 2, and then you play those same shapes, and you've got a whole nother key to play in using that same style.
What I liked about that version of using F in the context of C is that those high notes almost give you the sense of like a pad that's in the background, even though it's not really there, but it's that drony high sound. It's really satisfying. Okay, another one that I've struggled with, and others have struggled as well, is the A with the C sharp in the bass. I've seen this most often if you're on a D chord or a D2 and you're trying to walk it down to B minor, just getting that pinky to stretch. Talk about that chord a little bit.
Funny story before we start, and all the viewers are going to not like me very much, but so in high school I was a very terrible basketball player, but I did play, and I broke this pinky finger twice, and so you can see, this pinky should curve with the rest, and it doesn't. It goes that way, and so it was really unfortunate at the time. But what I've noticed and what I've learned about this over the years is it actually helps my reach.
God is sovereign, right?
That God is sovereign, and He has allowed my pinky to achieve great things on the guitar because of this injury. But basically, what Rick's talking about is you've got like a D chord. That walk down, the D. Whoops, sorry about that. C sharp, yeah. So again, I think just the way to do that is to, you've got your shapes, to get your shapes in order first. So there's your D. C sharp is going to come down right there. And in terms of a way to practice that, I mean, it's really just a matter of kind of going back and forth. I will say this. When you're playing any fretted instrument, it's really important you want to keep your fingers close to the fretboard. We wouldn't want to do this. You see how hard my fingers are having to work, exaggerating, my pinky's got to come all the way from down up there to down there. So try and keep things close as you're practicing this. And what that does is it allows for faster changes, cleaner changes, and it's just more efficient. You're not having to work so hard. So yeah, as you're practicing, try and keep your fingers close to the fretboard too. Is that helpful?
Absolutely. And y'all may notice that he also snuck in a cheat for the B minor chord. Will you just show that shape one more time?
Oh yeah. So you'd mute your E string. So you have 2, open 2, 3, and then open to the top. So it's very similar to where you started. You're just kind of moving things down over there for that B minor.
Yeah, love that sound. All right, and then lastly, this is not so much a problem chord, but a chord that maybe has more options than you might realize, and that's the G chord. Talk about the traditional shape of that, and then some maybe better alternatives for that.
Yeah, that's good. G, so if you were to go buy a Mel Bay guitar book, they're going to say, this is the way you play G. And they're going to say to put that B note in there. It's basically the second fret of the A string. I really don't like that. I feel like it's too muddy. It makes the chord too muddy. You got too much low happening in there. So what I'll typically do is just mute the A string with this index finger. Kind of the same thing we were talking about with some chord we did earlier. I can't remember what it was, but basically you're just muting that so you're not hearing it. And it just kind of opens it up a little bit more. Notes are a little bit further apart and it doesn't sound so muddy. So one way I'll use G. Typically you'd have G, you go to C, D. So this is kind of a fun way you can do move to C without really moving to C. G, you can do a C over G. It's almost kind of functioning as a sus chord.
Feels a lot like what the Eagles would have used.
Yeah.
Kind of that 70s rock sound.
So that's something you can do. So there's that. Another way you can play G would be this way, and this you find this in I feel like a lot more modern songs for the church. But so this is going to be a kind of a G5. There's not really that third in there. Again, I'm going to use my middle finger here on the 3rd fret. I'm going to mute that A string. Open D, open G, and then I'm going to use a 3 on the B string and a 3 on the E string, and that just gives me this nice big open. I mean, it's essentially like a power chord. There's no third in the And you can use the same shape to go to C. And even D. So essentially what that D chord is, it's another sus chord. We talked about where the 4 is kind of replacing the 3 there for a minute. And so that's another way you could use that, a different G shape to kind of achieve a little bit different sound. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Well, this list is by no means exhaustive, but I think that we've covered some of the big hitters here. This has been a guitar tutorial with Adam Wright. Thanks for watching. If you found this content helpful, I invite you to visit my site, rickbarnesmusic.com, where you can find more video tutorials and a lot of sheet music. Thanks for watching.